Today's lesson is on power rules, which is essentially what is happening when we have a power that we're raising to another power. So for example, x squared, this whole quantity raised to the third power. So let's talk about why the rule is that when you have a power raised to a power, you multiply the exponents, but let's just talk really quickly about why that is. So here, x to the second to the third power means x to the second 3 times. That means x to the second times x to the second times x to the second. And what we learned a couple sections ago is that when you're multiplying powers with the same base, you add the exponents. And any kind of repeated addition is called multiplication. So when we have x to the second 3 times, we can just do 2 times 3 to get 6. And then it just says down here, not to forget that when an exponent is negative, we're going to write it as a positive by putting it in the denominator of the fraction. And I'll kind of re-explain that when we get to one that does that. So here, x to the fourth, y to the second, to the fifth power. Everything in our parentheses is getting raised to the fifth. So 4 times 5 is x to the 20th. 2 times 5 is y to the 10th. And then this middle one, a to the 8th to the 3rd, would be a to the 24th. B, remember that's kind of like a little imaginary 1. So b to the 1st to the 3rd is b to the 3rd. And then c to the 7th to the 3rd would be c to the 21st power. Okay, so here we're going to be dealing with negatives. So we have a, and then 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And then b to the negative 2 power, negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10. And then c to the 4th to the negative 5th would be c to the negative 20th. And then what we have to remember is that these negative exponents mean that it's in the wrong part of the fraction, right? So what still has a positive exponent is b to the 10th, but what needs to go in the denominator of the fraction is a to the 15th and c to the 20th power. Okay, let's look down here at this next one. We have 6 to the 4th, and then x to the 8th, and then y would be to the negative 32 power. So we can go ahead and make it positive by putting it in the denominator of our fraction. In this middle one, we have x to the 4th to the 5th to the 2nd. So x to the 4th to the 5th would be x to the 20th, and then squared would be x to the 40th power. 4 times 5 is 20, 20 times 2 is 40. Okay, let's look at this next one kind of step by step. So I'm going to leave my brackets, and I have x to the second to the negative second is x to the negative 4th. And then y to the negative 3rd to the negative 2nd, negative 3 times negative 2 is y to the 6th. And that whole quantity is being raised to the 5th power. So that's going to give me x to the negative 20th, which means it's in the denominator of our fraction, and then y to the 6th to the 5th, y to the positive 30 power. So if you want, why don't you pause it and do these last 3 and then come back and check your work. Okay, on this first one, you should have x to the 7th, y to the 7th, z to the 7th. On this middle, a to the 15th, b to the 20th, c to the 30th. And on this last question, you should have 7 squared y to the 16th. And if you worked that out, you would have 49 y to the 16th.